Project Bluebeam and create a fake alien invasion. And Jim, you remember the document that I screen shared called, it was a program called Firesign. It was a salvage operation by, that was the Clinton Foundation sponsored the, or paid for the Benison Group, which did their opposition research, came to the conclusion that basically Trump supporters were unstoppable. There's virtually nothing that will stop Trump supporters from going to the poll and voting on election day, because they took a poll and asked people all these different scenarios, what would stop them? I mean, Zika virus, this, I mean, nothing would stop Trump supporters from going to the poll, essentially. And the only thing that might be like a major alien invasion, might be a smaller number of people might show up, and that was their only hope. So don't be surprised if we come up with something like, if they come up with something like this. But I screen shared the technology. It was a laser that they used to bounce off the ionosphere in the atmosphere, sodium layer of the ionosphere, and that they can project these images that are very real looking. And in fact, they can even project, they affect the frontal lobe, like where you have the awe, a religious kind of awe effect. I'm telling you, it's very sophisticated stuff, Jim. So people should be very careful and discerning about things that you might come to see. I don't know if they're going to do it, but they have the technology. And Jim, when I'll find the document and I'll show it to you.
Well, it sounds, of course, incredibly stupid, but the gullibility of the American people should not be underestimated.
Right.
And it could account for laying a foundation with these UFO revelations, where, of course, everyone knows there are plenty of unidentified flying objects. The question is simply whether any of them have an extraterrestrial origin. Some of what they're showing looks to me to be completely fake. I've got to tell you, this triangle that just moves around, that looks like a cursor on a screen to me. So count me thus far not impressed.
Well, Jim, they're called TR3Bs, and because I've interviewed some people from the Secret Space Program, and that's what they call them. And we make them. They're made by us in secret Black Ops projects. So since we have this technology, we have advanced technology. Where they came from, that's another conversation, but we do have it. So some of them are ours, and they're not sharing that with humanity. But here's the image that I have that I wanted to screen share with everybody, so that you don't have to take my word for it. This is their own document. Okay, so here it is. This is the salvage program. This is by the Benison Strategy Group in Washington, D.C. And it says the ability to produce these effects across 23% of the continental United States. That's a huge percentage, Jim. This is huge, right? Is the objective of Firesign, and the field tests in the Levant have proven successful. The Firesign scenario is that of an invading extraterrestrial force of nearly incomprehensible scale. Massive floating cities descending, godlike walkers among the clouds with terrifying weapons, wheels of fire and eyes, etc. This phenomena, when activated, will bring electoral and social systems to a halt, and in afflicted areas will permit a narrative wherein POTUS is able to call a halt to the invasion, then hand over the torch to Clinton, providing the basic continuity of state. So this was one of her backup plans to keep Trump from getting into office. And you can see here on the left, you can see the diagram. There's a 3D hologram image. And I think they're more than 3D, Jim, because they have sound. You can have heat, so you can hear their sound. They project sound. They're very sophisticated now, these hologram technologies that we have. Sodium layer, so you can see that right up there. You can also see the laser beam, right, shooting here from the lasers, all controlled by computer, folks. It's all fake. It's Wizard of Oz coming to life. So you can
may I say, Louisa, that all this sophisticated holographic technology, I believe, is further confirmation that holograms of planes were used in New York on 9/11. I mean, I've explained we're witnessing something that's aerodynamically and physically impossible. The plane is traveling faster at that altitude than a Boeing 767 could travel. Pilots for 9/11 Truth have produced a documentary, 9/11 Intercepted, showing the plane would have physically fallen apart. It also could not have possibly entered the building. For example, the South Tower, it was intersecting with 8 different floors, each of which consisted of a steel truss with 4 to 8 inches of concrete, with the buildings 208 by 208 that was an acre of concrete on a steel truss intersecting with 8, not to mention the formidable external steel support columns. It would have crumpled external to the building, body, seats, luggage fallen to the ground. It wasn't there. And instead, the plane effortlessly passes through the building. Why? Because it's only an image, not a real object.
You know, Jim, you always amaze me. You're like, it's like you always have your AK ready and loaded and waiting to shoot out your facts and your statistics, and you never miss a beat, my friend. You're unbelievable. I think it's absolutely possible. This is exactly the technology that they used. For 9/11,
And
for all the
what year
reasons
was
and more
this,
that you mentioned.
Louisa, this report you're presenting? Do you recall the year? I mean, this is
Yeah.
fascinating stuff, you know, and Hillary was pulling out all the stops,
Yeah.
all the stops. And that's why I think they had to be so massive in 2020. Trump had already overwhelmed their having rigged the election for Hillary in 2016, and he won anyway. So they had to make sure it didn't happen. They overdid it, which, as you are explaining, the audit in Arizona and others that will follow will reveal the enormity of the theft of this election.
It's that important, and we have to be paying attention to it. It's 2016, Jim, and I'll show it to you in just a minute. What this is designed to do, it says the aftermath of Firesign will be the psychological subjugation of areas where uprisings are most likely to occur. The induced trauma of Firesign will provide ample cover to government and NGOs who will be providing aid. Notice how that's in quotations, Jim. So meaning psychotropic to induce docility, right? So they're going to do what? They're going to give us drugs or something. And counseling services will ensure further domestication. This is how, you know what, I'm telling you, Jim, this is exactly how the globalists think. They treat us, and all they spend their time on is how to control us, how to control what we think, what we eat, what we feel, what we see, what we hear, every single aspect of our life. Firesign will require a great deal of power. Mobile command stations with nitrogen-cooled supercomputers and the co-opting of the ELF array. We have created a schedule and team rosters that can be moved into position following the third debate. This is crazy. This was their conclusion of their research, Jim, of what were they going to do to keep Trump voters from going to the polls. This is how crazy they are. They're this crazy. They're more crazy than you can even imagine. This is the front page of that document. Okay, it might be a little hard to see. Let me see if I can. Can you see?
It's the Clinton Foundation right there as sponsor.
Right. I'm going to try to enlarge this so people can see it. It just wasn't enlarging.
I think you may have provided enough. That first page was excellent.
Yeah, this is the first page, and it says, this was interviews with 2021 adult Americans conducted by telephone by BSG on October 10th to the 13th, 2016. So this is just right before, the election. The margin of sampling error results based on the total sample, whatever. This sample includes 1,101 interviews among landline respondents and 920 interviews among cell phone respondents. So the samples used LVS based on voting history. All right, that's not important. But clearly you can definitely see that on a disturbing note, some 70% of Republican-leaning voters are aware bust-in voting, false face operations, and dead man's party registration drives. This may necessitate more strategy changes for November. They do mention the WikiLeaks. They said for voters who solely consume mainstream media, only 28% are aware of the WikiLeaks emails, and those only 8%. So they said here, among independents, Hillary voters who are exposed to any alternative media, 73% are aware of the WikiLeaks emails and find them either disturbing, 54%, or deeply disturbing, 18%. Among liberal identifying whites, support is shifting from Hillary since October 1st to Donald Trump, 78%. So they knew this was a big problem. And, again, this is research. This is what they were doing. They paid for it. You're right, Jim. Clinton Foundation. So,
well, what's interesting about this is a degree of sophistication where this Berenson group obviously is doing real serious polling, because you have to act on reality. This isn't fake news. This is what they need, the data they need to analyze how they're going to swindle the election for Hillary, deceive
That's
the
right.
American people, and continue to dominate the
Yeah.
country
Yeah.
illegitimately, in fact, in relation to the
Yeah.
Constitution and democratic process.
Yeah, and if they're willing to go through these extremes, these extreme measures, just what else are they willing to do? And just very quickly, just so I can wrap up this particular story. I know I've presented this before, but it seems always relevant, doesn't it? These are the other. So they had to put together salvage options, recommendation, and alternatives. So they said here, we have analyzed a number of potential salvage options and have a strong recommendation. Now, as we already shared that recommendation, which is the fake alien invasion, that's pretty pathetic. If that's their strongest recommendation, that's pathetic because look at what they were looking at. Red Dawn scenarios, cobalt rain. I mean, they would absolutely drop radiological attack on people to keep them from going to the voting booths. I mean, this is crazy. Look, BL riot. This tells you right here these people are in control of the whole Black Lives Matter situation. Okay, Zeke apocalypse. So this was the pandemic here. You see that? This was all under their control, folks. This is such an admission. This is a huge smoking gun document because if they're really considering these things, this means they have control over them. So we have Sharia escalation. They can, on a minute, have a group of people just start escalating. And it's what they have planted the Ilhan Omar in there and all those other people. Unnatural disaster, talking about HARP, and which, can create tornadoes, earthquakes, and things like that. And so, but these are the things these are the extreme degrees that they were willing to go to. And so be prepared for any one of these folks to distract us from what the results of this audit are going to be. And here they are talking about this Firesign. Look, this is this means they have control over NASA. Look, for almost 2 decades, the Department of Defense and NASA have coordinated on a black book project under the code name Firesign. Firesign's aim is to create a religious awe effect in enemy populations. They consider us enemies, folks. Do you hear this? This is only regarding the United States. To create an instantaneous psychological soft kill. The operation uses high-powered lasers to project real-seeming images on the sodium layer 100 kilometers above the surface. These images can cover hundreds or even thousands of square miles and can appear completely real, three-dimensional, and can move. So this is pretty sick, Jim. They're willing to go to these extreme degrees. They consider us, it shows the contempt and disdain that they have for the average working man, for anyone who's really not in their club, as George Carlin had informed us about, Jim. But I'm telling you, as General Flynn was saying, be prepared. We don't know what it's going to be, but know that they have the ability to pull out a lot of stops, a lot of things that could be very damaging to people. But what's most revealing, Jim, is that they have control over these things. They have control over releasing a deadly virus. They admit it in these documents. They have control over escalating Sharia law dissent. They have control over BLM. They have control over these other radiological, attack. I'm telling you, they're very dangerous, and this is our government.